So welcome back. I am going to continue the story of my 4 storage boxes, and I do currently have 4 storage boxes underneath my truck, even though at one point I lost one. And the story of that is also related to my Baja propane generator. So first of all, let's rewind a little bit. It took me about 5 separate days to actually get these boxes installed. It took one whole day, and by whole day I mean the amount of time I can actually dedicate to having time to do a build project. It took 5 separate days actually to get all of that done, because one day was kind of a rollover day where I had to come back to it in the morning to sort of finish it up. But if you want to watch the last video, you can get a little bit of that story. So finally I was feeling successful. They were all in. I was happy. And then I went to see a show that my friend was in, a drive-in theater show. And I was there early, and I got tucked into a corner with the help of actually Ashley, who is directing me into parking. Ashley's been in some of my past videos helping with the build. And I was tired, and it was late, and I wasn't paying attention. So completely my fault, but I ended up mangling the generator box as I was pulling out of the parking lot, because my box was kind of at this angle around this structure and I just couldn't see it. It was actually the structure that operated the gate, and I gotten tucked into that perfectly because I had been directed in for parking, but when I was leaving, wasn't so pretty. Now, since this was the generator box, you may be asking, well, what about the generator? Was it damaged? Well, luckily or unluckily enough, I was just on a bad luck streak, and in fact, by the time the box was damaged, the Baja propane generator had stopped working on its own. And I couldn't figure out if it was something I did or a manufacturer problem or what, but I did start to take the steps to find out if it was eligible for replacement. So within a short window, I was not only out a generator, I was out my generator box, which I would have to replace if I wanted to put it back in. And at the time, it was one of those things that really stressed me out, and things were, piling up on me, and that's one of the reasons you're just hearing about it now. But there was something I couldn't have predicted removing that generator box would make me vulnerable for. You see, the thing about those storage boxes, and I didn't even really realize this consciously because I wasn't really worried about anybody. I didn't want to be underneath my truck, getting underneath my truck, is they do close off access to underneath the truck, especially when I am parked curbside. With the box gone, there was a significant gap that was easy to get behind, and I got jacked for my catalytic converter. I went live the night it happened. So, I of course am aware of the thievery of catalytic converters, and I think I got hit last night. Like, I'm fairly confident that's what they took. And the bad thing is, if I had had my box that got damaged, it would have kind of made it harder for them to hit me. So I was laying sleeping, and I heard this noise, and at first I thought, am I getting towed? And so I get up, I look out my window, I see this car with its door open, and this guy with a hoodie kind of jumping in the car, and then they drive off. So I put on some shoes, I get out of my truck, I go around the side, and sure enough, I see the cut pipe. From that point forward, everything seemed to go on pause to resolve the catalytic situation. It took over my life and the channel for a little bit, and I don't even want to remember what a headache it was to deal with all that. But just know it did get resolved eventually. So let's go back in time and talk about the stupid, unresolved issue of the Baja propane generator. So basically, I got this generator from Home Depot online. Now, in most situations, Home Depot has a 90-day return policy. But for generators, there's only a 30-day return policy. My particular generator died in about 2 months of me owning it, so I was outside of the return window for Home Depot directly. So my only possible solution was to look and see if Baja itself had a warranty on the device. And in fact, it does have a 2-year warranty on the device as long as you can prove you bought it less than 2 years ago. So I looked up the company that actually produces this generator, which is called OWT Industries, and I was kind of worried because Google said they were permanently closed. But still, I said there's a phone number, I'm going to call it. And so I called the service phone number, had all my information written down about the generator, had a copy of my receipt, and in fact, the woman on the phone, who it took forever to get a hold of, said that as long as I could prove that I bought it less than 2 years ago, it did fall within the 2-year return replacement window, as long as a service center said that it was a manufacturer defect and not something that I caused. They told me, though, that I needed to take it to Home Depot, to their tool area, which is also their service center, and that they would have to declare it a manufacturer problem. However, when I got to Home Depot told me, we've never heard of this being a thing. We actually don't think that we even heard of this company called Baja before. And I was like, well, it's actually called OWT Industries. The person at the service center was confused, but after confirming that just believing that I'd had this conversation with the company, she allowed it to come in for service. She did confirm with a phone call soon after that it wasn't sparking and it wasn't the spark plug, but she was still pretty sure that Home Depot did not service this company. Well, she said she could send it to the service center. It would be gone for like 6 weeks, and I had to leave like a $30 deposit or something like that. So, like I said, all of this happened before the generator box got destroyed. And then the generator box got destroyed. So I was down a generator that I couldn't afford to flat out replace, and I was down a generator box that I also couldn't afford to flat out replace. When on top of all of those things, my catalytic converter got stolen, and then every bit of energy I had got directed to that. So with the passing of time, things came together. I was able to order a new replacement box from Amazon, and then luckily, the Champion generators went on sale. Still wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper. Wasn't exactly the one I wanted, but it was within a price range where I could at least have a generator again. And if I was going to keep going, I desperately needed it. I will say the quality of the Champion generator versus the Baja generator was immediate upon taking it out of the box. I was a little sad that it was a gas-only generator, but the quality of it, like you touch it, you feel it, you can see it, it's just there. Now that I had the new generator, it was time to get started with setting it up and setting up the new generator box. I decided to beef up things on the modification to the box this time and add a 12-volt fan. I had already added a USB end to this fan that could be plugged into the generator when in use. Once the fan was in place, I was ready to deal with all the lining up and resetting the brackets and getting everything attached. You will notice I put 2 additional vents on the top of the box. I later regretted that. It made sense for extra ventilation, but it also opened the top of the box to be invaded by things like mud, dirt, and water. My final modification to the box was this little plug that I attached on the outside. And with that, we were done with boxes for the second time. So this is the generator running on eco mode in a parking lot. And as you can hear, you can barely detect it. So as you can see, the generator is running on the ground, not in the box. After all the modifications I made to the box, I just found this to be easier. It's a little bit bigger than the Baja generator, so it'll fit in there for storage, but fitting it in there to run it is a bit tight. And also, it has not been that hard to just find a place in a parking lot where I can kind of tuck it beside the truck, and at most it kind of sounds like maybe an engine is running the closer you are to it. But it was just more trouble than it was worth to try to pull off running it in the box. So I patched the holes on the top with some metal from the destroyed box, and I did leave ventilation. I pulled out the fan, but I did leave ventilation on the side of the box, mostly for the gasoline and the gasoline smell. That way I actually can tuck the gasoline can in there. I can tuck the generator in there. They're nice and secured in there, and it doesn't open up smelling like gasoline. So right now it's still ventilated on the side just for that gasoline smell, but I've closed off the top to try to reduce foreign things getting into there. Maybe at some point I'll just replace the whole box, but for right now, I'm happy. So it's safe to say that storage boxes were way more challenging than I thought they were going to be. I remember the first day I set out to put in the first one, and I still thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I just need to install these brackets, pop the storage box on top, and it'll be done. And I can do this in one day, and it took several days. And then on top of that, I had a destroyed box. So there was a box that I lost along the way and then had to replace, and that was on me. That was totally and completely on me. And learning to like navigate this, there are so many benefits to the larger vehicle as far as like space, living space, comfort, all these things when it's parked, but it is tricky learning how to navigate it when it's moving if you've never driven anything big. And I had before, but it's one thing to have to get from point A to point B with a box truck and then go back into a small vehicle, and another thing to have that be your constant on a daily basis. Like, that is always your size. So there are benefits and stuff to size, and then there are like things you have to consider when it comes to size. There are ways that I miss having a minivan. But when I'm standing up in here at full height, I don't miss those days at all. So it was what it was, and you know, I replaced the box that I damaged and moved forward from that point. And even though the boxes were harder than I thought, like I thought it was going to be one day of knocking out 4 boxes and moving on with my life, it turned into several days of doing it, like one day per box. And by the 3rd box, I knew, don't be delusional, Dawn, you're going to get in one box and have to call it a wrap for the day. And that was fine. And now I have them, and now I have that exterior storage, and it's so much easier to access and so much easier to use. So I know this wasn't an exciting update on the inside of the box truck, but I wanted to make sure I did a Van Bill diary about these exterior boxes as well. So many people seem unfamiliar with the fact that they exist. You'll see exterior storage on things like ambulances and RVs, but I don't think a lot of people had looked at work trucks and noticed that these boxes exist. People in my comment sections who had seen them on work trucks were like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And other people were like, what? You're gonna put a box underneath? What? There will be another van build diary next week, and I think I am finally going into installation. I just wanted to make sure I covered a bunch of stuff that happened before I really get into that video. Cool. See you in the next one. All right, YouTube business time. So I have to remind you that there's this thing on YouTube called the algorithm, and the algorithm likes certain things. They like when you like videos. They like when you subscribe to videos. They like when you comment on videos. And all these things just makes it look like, hey, this gal making stuff that people like to watch. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. If you think you'd like the channel, subscribe to it. And if you just have something to say about the video, you know, leave that in the comment section. It can just be like a thumbs up, a couple of emojis, or a bunch of words. All of these things are good. Thank you guys for checking out this latest video. Also, thank you to my supporters on Patreon and YouTube memberships. You guys are awesome.